It's Paul Marsh, and I'm delighted to say that I'm joined again by Richard McNamara from Embrace. Richard, how are you, sir?
Hey Paul, how are you doing? Yeah, very well, thanks.
Uh,
How are you?
what a time it is for you at the moment. You got the single out Road to Nowhere. We are playing it. It is absolutely brilliant. You've got a new album coming out in the summer, and then you're touring at the end of the year. It's good to be in Embrace, right?
It's busy, yeah, very busy. Sounds like we've got quite a lot on.
Well, it is 30 years of Embrace. You do have a brand new album
Mm.
on the way. When you look back over the time and you think about that band that started, I think it was early 90s or mid to early 90s. Did you ever think that you'd still be here 3 decades later?
I think I thought I would always do it. I thought that this was always going to be my job. From the age of about 14, probably late 80s. When me and Danny got together, we were terrible at the start. It was really nothing sort of like to hang anything on back in the beginning. I remember we spent ages working on a demo. Me, Danny, and the bass player that we had at the time. We spent about a month working on it, and we got my mum and dad down to have a listen to it, and we played them the tracks. And then at the end of it, my mum just said, "What do you want for tea?" That was it. There's no like comment on the tracks or anything. so,
If you've
so
got
we were
nothing nice to say, you say nothing at all.
exactly, yeah, offer food.
I was talking to Dave Rowntree from Blur the other day, and we were talking about the fact that both of their first two albums were, good enough that they charted, good enough that they got tours out of them and all of that type of stuff, but they obviously weren't huge albums with massive, massive hits.
Yeah.
Were you glad that you came around in the 90s when, you got that little bit of breathing room, and if you didn't take over the world on your first album, you probably got another shot.
Yeah, it's gone the other way now, hasn't it? Yeah, back in the day, there was much more of sort of like money around for development for bands, but where A&R people were entrusted with finding talented people to, be the next big thing, and then was like you were always expected to sort of like progress and get bigger rather than coming out of all guns blazing. But we sort of because we were from the north, I think it's kind of different to being from London because like in London, all eyes are on you at all times, whereas in the north, you can kind of develop and sort of and hone yourself and your skills without anybody really noticing you. So we did actually get one review from the Melody Maker, which said, which is the reason why we stopped gigging and went away to like reimagine the whole band, really. So that was like a little taste of London, I suppose. Um, but yeah, but that's why we went away and we like really honed it all down and like came out came out with a number 1 album straight out of the gate.
Well, Londoners are not always known for being friendly, are they? So, maybe in the long term, it was obviously a good thing for you. Let's talk about the new album. The new album's called Avalanche. It's out in June. What was the key point that started this record, and how does it compare to maybe your last album and then some of the earlier stuff?
Um, I can't remember where it started. It's kind of like right, get your diaries out, lads. When are we free? We should probably start working on some new stuff. That's kind of how it goes. There's no sort of like plan. Well, work backwards from this date and let's get an album finished. It's just let's spend some time together and make some music. And it kind of always evolves sort of naturally and organically from that.
How has that all changed? Obviously, like you say, from the early days of getting together and recording to now, everyone's obviously got the families and the kids and all the other bits
Yeah.
and pieces that life entails, and you're still in a band, and that all has to work and fit around.
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, it was 24/7, 365. At all times, you're constantly working on the band. You turn up at the studio at 11 and then leave at 2 o'clock in the next morning, and then get time to do a couple of like ideas at home before you came in the next day. So it was pretty frantic. If you weren't doing that, you were promoting it or going somewhere to record something or interviews like this. Whereas nowadays, it's kind of like we get together for a couple of weeks, maybe get a couple of ideas out of that, and then repeat that process 5, 6, 7 times to get an album. So it's a lot more sort of like convivial these days. Lot easier on the social life and family life. Yeah.
The first single, Road to Nowhere, is out now. Like I say, we're playing it. We absolutely love it. Tell us the story behind the track and why it felt like the right song to introduce the new album.
It kind of came from like a really small idea that I had. I kind of tend to send Danny ideas that have really silly names like Cornflake, Cornflake, or Tractor Factor, or Bizwiz, or Bunch of Grapes, whatever. So that there's no precious. I'm not precious about it, or there's no the ego attached to it. So and then he'll come back with the ones that he gets ideas to, and then we sort of take it from there. And I think he texted me at 3 o'clock in the morning to say that he's got an idea for that, Tractor Factor. We should bring it to the next session. And then when we've got like 10 ideas like that, we book a week in. And it was one of those, and it's kind of like it wasn't really working early on until I kind of got this like guitar riff that sped it up by maybe double, and it turned it from being like a slow sort of moody thing into being like the up tempo song that it ended up being. And then we cut the guitar off the front and started with the Bosches, because it was like it went around the guitar a couple of times, so I might use that riff on something else. Maybe it's a good riff. And then it's sort of like after we'd done that, it was kind of like, oh wow, this is actually could be a bit of a single here. We sort of like did wonder about calling it Road to Nowhere, obviously with Talking Heads track and everything and confusion around there, but Danny was adamant about that, and he was right. It's going down really well. Everyone that we talked to is like absolutely loving it. You can kind of get a feel for how good something is that you've done by the response from the fans on the social media and stuff, and they're all really gushing about it. So that's encouraging.
It's certainly picked up with us. It started sort of on the C list and it's moved up to the B list. So I'd imagine within a few weeks it'll be on the A list as well.
All right, great.
When you sit down to record, do Embrace have a signature sound now that every album is going to sound like Embrace, or do you hear other things and you get influence from other bits and pieces? You think, well, no, let's try that.
I think we've got like a core sort of bunch of bands that we sort of like and we all sort of reference. We've got our own sounds individually. Mickey's got his keyboard sounds, his piano sounds, and his strings, and Mike likes his drums a certain way, and likewise Steve his bass and me my guitar. And when we play, it's like muscle memory. We kind of like we just sound like Embrace, regardless of what we do. I mean, I thought Road to Nowhere was quite out there for us. I thought that didn't really sound like us at all, because of the speed of it, and the beat of it's different to what we usually do. But the first thing everyone says is, "Wow, it's classic Embrace,"
It's
so
funny.
I think we can't really get away from that. I think that's just what we sound like. But I do try and sort of mix it up in the studio and try and like insert things which maybe aren't what we sound like. And sometimes there's raised eyebrows, like, "Oh, I don't know if we should do this. It's not really us, is it?" I'm like, well, what is us? What we do is us. Whatever we come out with is us. So.
Well, I can't wait to hear that on the festivals, because I think that is going to sound amazing in front of like 20, 30, 40,000 people. I think that'll sound absolutely brilliant, the crowd singing back and all of that. Let's head back to the mid-90s for a moment. When you first started getting all of that attention, like you say, the album hits #1 and everything. What was that moment when you realised, okay, we've gone up a level here?
It's a bit of a funny one, really, and in some ways I've got regrets about it, because at the time I was kind of so wrapped up in it and having 100% full belief and faith in it that it was going to happen. That was just a view out of the window as we were on the journey, So getting a #1 album, and I think it went to #1 before it even came out, just on pre-orders.
I believe
we had
at the time it's one of the fastest selling albums in the UK or something like that.
Yeah, it's like 100,000 copies, and on the first day of like sales or something like that. So that's gold. We did like a big press conference and everything, and it's just kind of we've got this to do, and then we've got a gig tomorrow, and then we're going on tour the day after, and then we've got so you don't really get a chance to sort of appreciate it as it's going by. The only sort of like the next time that happened was after we'd got dropped after the third album, and we came back with Gravity and Ashes and Out of Nothing, and we'd been re-signed, and that week that album had also gone gold before it came out, and we were in a music shop in London, sort of like, I think it was near Oxford Street, in a cellar somewhere, where we got like a text from our manager saying, "You've just gone gold, lads, and it's not out until 4 days time." And that was kind of the moment where I suddenly realised the sort of size of it, the gravity of it, no pun intended. Yeah, and that's kind of like, that was where I felt like the universe was back on our side again, and and I was in the where I was meant to be, because when you get dropped from something and it's all you've got, it kind of pulls the rug from under you, and quite a scary time really. And we had to get jobs, and I was selling everything in the house to pay the bills, and it's just kind of nice really when you get rid of all your old junk in it.
Don't tell my wife that; she's forever throwing my stuff out.
Yeah, so then having that sort of like support from the label, and like having a feeling of like, yeah, the album's got to number 1, so that means we've got gigs. That means the next 2 years are probably covered for, because I had a young family at the time as well. My kids were like 3 and 1.
It's funny, isn't it? It does really change as you get older. When you're all young, free, and single, and and it's just fun. You're just doing one thing after another, and all you're thinking is the next gig, the next show, the next song we're going to record, and all of that. And all of a sudden, you have a family, you have responsibilities, and you think, oh God, like the pressure's on, because if this next album doesn't sell, we get dropped. If we get dropped, I can't put food in these people's mouths.
Yeah, definitely. Although I'm not really that sort of present in my head to like have that kind of worry. But yeah, that's look. It's like always when I look back, it terrifies me.
Is that
Because at the time I wasn't scared. I was just had the faith that everything was going to be okay.
That's. Do you know what? It's almost a religion, isn't it? It doesn't matter what happens. I just know it's going to be okay.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very, very naive.
I love that. I love it. I love it. I think it's brilliant. The tour that you're doing at the end of the year, it is celebrating 30 years of Embrace. Does it just feel like that perfect time to mix all of the old stuff, Goodwill Out and Gravity and everything else like that, with the new stuff? And your last album did really, really well as well. So with the new album as well, it feels like that perfect time to celebrate the earlier stuff, but also the accomplishments of the new as well.
Yeah, there's certainly we're probably going to have a few deep cuts in there from that we don't normally play. We kind of do want to start changing it up a little bit, because we do tend to go out with the greatest hits and pepper it with a couple of new ones, which I think we probably will do on the tour as well. I don't think there's going to be anybody walking away saying they didn't play my favourite song, because if we don't play your favourite, we usually play your second favourite. That's what I always say. They say, "You're going to play X," and I go, "Well, what's your second favourite?" And say, "Oh, why?" And goes, "Oh, we're playing that one." Yeah.
Again, it's funny, isn't it? Because like I know that everybody goes through certain stages of, oh, I never want to play that song ever again, and then 20 years later, you go, I can't wait to play that same song.
Yeah, come back to what you know is a bit like that for me. There's something about the way that we recorded that, did that, came up with that just didn't go through the normal birthing process that of us like all killing each other for a week. It was just too easy somehow how it came out, and it's just something about it just doesn't jive with me. So it's kind of go through the motions when I'm playing that one a little bit, but I know everyone else loves it.
So have you not fallen back in love with that yet?
Not really, no. I mean, I did. We've got this technology nowadays. It's like they can do the sound check when the band's not there, because it records the show from the night before and then plays it back through the PA the next day. And I did hear it once. I did hear him sort of like EQing the PA or whatever it is he does. And I heard it and I didn't know what it was. I says, "Oh, that sounds cool. Sounds a bit like us." And then I walked in and it with that song. It's like, oh, right, that's what they like about it. I get it now.
Do you know what? Do you know what's really, really funny? So I interviewed Spike Edney about 6 months ago, who toured with Queen throughout the years. And I asked him, have you ever heard a Queen song and heard it in a completely different light? And he said the same thing. He said, he was out shopping with his wife and he was in like a department store or something like that. And he heard a Queen track come on. And he's like, I know this, but I can't think what tune it is. And it was a tune that they were due to play on some award show in a couple of weeks' time or whatever it was. And he's like, I heard it in a completely new light and it made me think about it differently. And I think that happens once in a blue moon, and it's nice when it does.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, totally that. It felt like a different sort of ambient. It just felt bigger, because the only time I hear it really is my mix of it in my ears, which is like mainly guitar and drums. Or the recording that we did, which always feels a little bit sort of limp to me. feels like it could be beefier, like it's bigger nowadays. But yeah, hearing it through the PA, on
Well,
full
I mean,
blasting.
like there's lots of reimaginings. I mean, obviously, Noel Gallagher did it with "Be Here Now." He reworked the whole album. You could always go back and rework the albums.
Well, yeah, we are actually looking at doing a bit of that, re-recording stuff, and yeah, giving it a sort of like a new lease of life, maybe.
There you go. There you go. Right,
Yeah.
listen, we're running out of time, and I knew that this would happen because I love talking to you. So let's finish with a couple of the generic, silly radio questions. If someone had
Okay.
never heard Embrace before, what 3 songs would you tell them to start with?
I would pick Ashes, Drawn from Memory, and That's All Changed Forever.
I love it. Different to what a lot of people would expect. I really, really like
Mm.
that one. And then looking ahead to the album Avalanche, the tour, and everything that you got coming up, what excites you the most about the next chapter of Embrace?
That we're all getting energized and really upbeat about it all, and we all really want to do it. We had a sort of meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we just talked about how we want to crack on straight away with another album, even before this one's out, and maybe get that out, if not next year, then the year after, and just grow it. Rather than kind of like just do the sort of heritage circuit and bash out the hits once a year. We want to push it and take it further than it's ever been. Really, that's where we're looking. That's quite exciting.
I love it. I love it. I love listening to your old stuff. I've been a fan since the first album came out, and I love that I get to play all of your new stuff on the radio now, and I get to play it not through nostalgia because I loved you 30 years ago. I love that I get to play it now because it's really, really good. Richard, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it. The single Road to Nowhere is out now. The album Avalanche comes out on the 12th of June, and then you are touring towards the end of the year. Enjoy the rest of your year.
Cheers, Paul. Good to chat.